and then, but it could be different for each state, it could be different for each district, so we need to then start drilling down and so on. And your mention of irrigation is very useful because we find that in Pakistan, there are no severe hotspots because Pakistan is one of the world's largest irrigated country in the world. So whereas in India, as you said, majority, 60% of the agriculture farmers depend on rainfall, and in some places like Vidarbha, 80% of the farmers depend on rainfall. So we feel that, well, of course, Pakistan will be eventually will be hit. For example, if there's a glacier melt down the road, and then the Indus will go dry, you know. But that's a long-term impact. But at least for now, they are depending a lot on surface water, which is fled from glaciers. Whereas in Indian farmers, a lot depending on the erratic rainfall patterns, and so that's what is hitting them. In terms of what India is doing, I think I totally agree. I think India is has one of the most ambitious INDCs, and they're really pushing ahead in terms of renewables. And also in terms of adaptation, I mean, states have formulated their action plans. You know, we have a national level action plan and so on and so forth. The only thing we want to convey through this report is that yes, it's easy to come up with action plans, and how do we implement it? That's where maybe we feel that if you identify these hotspots, maybe that's where maybe the states can focusing on instead of spreading their resources, across too thin. Yeah. And that's why we feel that this analysis could be useful, could be a starting point for a dialogue. Because some state may not, as you said, may not agree with our findings, but then at least that gets them to start talking about what they think sees as alternatives. Again, on coal, the report doesn't talk much about coal because it's a totally different, controversial subject. We didn't get into it in the back, but yeah. But what we say in the report is that it's in India's interest and other South Asian countries' interest to make sure that other countries comply with Paris. Of course, we know that US came out of the Paris Agreement, but then, at least they should exert pressure on other countries to make sure that they comply. And then the last point I would like to mention here is that although the climate change is something that cuts across all South Asian countries, we feel that there is very little cooperation between the South Asian countries to deal with it as a common problem. We feel that this report could actually be a way to get these countries together, and then if they can put a force together, and they can be much more effective than they doing it alone, because this is something that facing all of them, and that's something that they can even maybe share weather data, share information, work together. That's our hope.
But Mani, I think that your report is going to only drive some of these countries further apart their positions because they have such differential impacts on climate change.
Yeah. Just on Nepal, just one point, and I think some Nepalis, when last time I gave a presentation, they were not quite happy that I'm saying that Nepal is going to benefit, but I told them that don't hold your breath, because if there is a major melt in the Himalayan glaciers, that's going to hit you major, because we are only looking at average changes in temperature and precipitation, which is going to benefit Nepal. But if there's a cloud, glacier lake outburst or some other major crisis that happens in the Himalayas, Nepalese will be the first ones to hit. And similarly, if there is a big, coastal flooding, obviously some of the coastal areas will be hit. Although in our study, we are finding that coastal areas are benefiting, from climate change. Yeah.
Thanks, Mani. As I promised, Mr. Mohan Bajikar, you have 2 minutes, please, if you could restrict yourself to 2 minutes.
I will finish off in 2 minutes.
Yes.
Nice report. Dr. Subramanian spoke very well. I appreciate it. We have technologies developed on orbiting space shuttle by us, and for several years, these technologies were available, but they were not demonstrated here. 3 years back, we have put up this technology in Dharwad Agriculture University. Please go and see it. Water requirement is virtually very, very 1% for agriculture technology, though it is in indoor cultivation. Similarly, sir, Dr. Chidambaram used to be the science advisor to the government of India. He, together with Secretary of Agriculture, had conducted a meeting of all the IIT people, ITI people, and Secretary of Agriculture knew me, he had invited me. They did not have any sensors for agriculture, but I was the only private person who had this technology. Water requirement. A small chip fixed into the leaf, it can tell you, I require water, I don't require water. I have that technology, we have these technologies are available with us. It's not the technology, but who will build the cat?
Thank you, Mr. Bajikar. You'll have an opportunity if you want to make further interventions after the panel discussion. Arvind, would you like to say something or respond to? Okay. So we take this opportunity to release the report, or a smaller version of the report. As I said, the full version is available online in the World Bank site. Arvind, may I request you to please release the report? Thank you once again, all of you, and thank you really, Arvind, for that wonderful address, and Mani for the presentation. May I request you to take a very short break for tea in the hall, and then come back in about 10 minutes for the panel discussion. Thank you all very much.